It's hard to say whether every state has an issue, but the New England states continually have a problem with heroin use. Out of all the New England states, Connecticut and New Hampshire have proven to be the main source of the heroin problem. To be more specific, Connecticut has continued to show an overwhelming growth of drug-related overdose deaths. According to this chart, Connecticut has had a higher rate of deaths per 100,000 than the U.S. overall. These larger numbers can also be broken down into counties in the Connecticut area, and as you can tell, the northern part of Connecticut is more likely to have an overdose death due to the higher population. Essentially, these numbers mean a lot to people who live in Connecticut, but why should other parts of the nation care? Every year, 11,000 people die from synthetic opioids, 4,000 people die from heroin, and 3,900 people die from the more common opioids prescribed by doctors. These people could be family, friends, or coworkers. They could be your family, they could be your friend, and they could be your coworker. So, opioid use, specifically heroin use, is a nationwide concern, and it should be a personal concern too. Let's dig a little bit deeper and figure out when the source of the problem began. According to an article written by Heroin Overview, the first site of heroin was in 1864 and it was produced by an English chemist. So far, there has been two major heroin epidemics in the United States. The first was post-World War II and the second began in the late 1960s. This trend of heroin use continued in 1995 and 1996. Males accounted for 67% of the heroin addiction population, and within the 67% of males, 22% of those males were between the ages 17 and 22. This means that teenagers are getting addicted in what could be some of their most developmental years. Although many states, including Connecticut, are trying to decrease these percentages, it has not been as successful as many citizens would like. One solution presented was an alternative opioid called buprenorphine. It helps with the cravings of heroin and it is less likely to overdose on. But 46 deaths occurred due to this alternative opioid. After hearing about the numerous lives lost to heroin addiction, let's narrow it down to one young girl's story. Her name was Courtney Griffin. Courtney was bright, beautiful, and only 20. She dreamed of living in Hawaii, and she was on her way to a successful life with the Marines. Heroin took over her life and became the sole thing preventing her from her dreams, and yet, she had no control over it. She was unlike herself, she lied, and stole from her parents just to support her $400 a day habit. The worst part is that just 2 months before her death, she was declined from a treatment facility. Her health insurance company declined to cover her treatment, and the insurance company's exact words were, "It wasn't a matter of life or death." Yet, Courtney knew that heroin was going to kill her. Courtney is one of many who face these issues with treatment programs. In fact, only 20% of people with moderate to severe drug use receive treatment each year, which is why safe injection sites could be a long-term solution to decreasing overdose deaths each year. Safe injection facilities is one evidence-proven option to fight this epidemic, but it tends to be overlooked. The city-sanctioned safe injection site has operated in Vancouver for the past 13 years. Since this facility opened, the fatal opioid overdose rate per neighborhood has decreased by 35% in 4 years. In its first 2 years of operation, this observed safe injection facility served 100 clients, supervised 2,574 injections, safely disposed of an estimated 1,725 syringes, and successfully reversed 2 overdoses. These numbers represent many lives. But to further show that safe injection sites are something to consider, addicts have been questioned on where they would have shot up and how they would have disposed of their needles. About 90% of the people said that they would have injected themselves in a public area. Another 67% said they would have disposed of their equipment unsafely. Even 9% of needle users said they would have used an unclean needle, which puts them at risk for alternative blood-borne diseases. Lawrence John, the president of the Pennsylvania Medical Society, is aware of these statistics, and he believes that we owe it to those suffering from the disease of addiction to carefully examine proposals that may reduce harm and buy time for them to get into treatment. Dane Scantling said that these sites are well studied and successful across the globe, but have been delayed by American politics while our patients die every day. It's time to take opioid and heroin addiction seriously and to take it upon yourself to allow those who seek alternate facilities to have the opportunity to.